Welcome to this NVIDIA GTC session today. We're going to be talking about deploying NVIDIA CloudXR with VMware Workspace ONE XR Hub. My name is Matt Coppinger. I'm a director at VMware for product management, specializing in AR and VR. And I'm joined today by Greg Jones from NVIDIA. Greg, would you like to introduce yourself?
You bet, Matt. Thanks. I'm the director of product management for AR, VR at NVIDIA and of business development. And look forward to going through this presentation with you, Matt.
Thanks, Greg. It's always an absolute pleasure. So appreciate you taking the time today. And, I do want to kind of talk initially about our partnership. We've been working very closely with you. NVIDIA and VMware have a very strategic relationship over the years through our work on virtual desktops, on machine learning and AI, and of course now in the XR space. It's been a pleasure to work with NVIDIA. Thank you for your partnership. And we're really looking forward to deploying CloudXR with the VMware set of products.
Oh, and right back at you, Matt. It's been a great partnership. You guys are absolutely killing it with this technology. Yep.
Great. So, welcome to NVIDIA GTC. And of course, let's start off with some of the basics and set a baseline for everyone. What is XR? Well, XR is an umbrella term for a spectrum of emerging digital reality technologies. And so this is a reasonably new term, and unfortunately, there's a bit of an alphabet, alphabet soup, if you want to call it, around the various different terms. You've probably heard of AR and VR and MR and XR, but let's just break it down. What is XR? So XR is this, umbrella term for a bunch of different technologies. On the left, we see assisted reality. This is really about smart glasses. These are head-worn displays with a small 2D display in your peripheral vision. And it's a small display, but it can provide some important information, some instructions, and those kind of things. No real awareness of the world around you, but may have a video camera so it can share what you're seeing with a remote expert. So typically used for remote assistance or complex tasks. Augmented reality is a step up from assisted reality. So again, this is a head-worn device. It has a see-through, transparent display where we can project, virtual objects and data onto that display, and it's stereoscopic. So we can present information so as if it looks like it's actually, sitting in reality. So we can project virtual objects into your physical reality. Additionally, these devices have sensors on them that can sense the 3D world, so they can map out the 3D world and understand where the real world objects are. And of course, we can also apply information to those real world objects and overlay them on the screen. And so augmented reality is really useful for augmented workflows, providing really complex instructions and guidance to someone wearing the device. We're going to go over to the far right here to talk about virtual reality. And virtual reality is, again, a head-worn device, but this time we're occluding the vision. So you're putting on a headset, and what you see through the lenses is, a display, two displays that, again, stereoscopic vision, but you're presented with a digital synthetic virtual world or virtual environment, which you can look around and the displays update to make it feel like you're actually in that synthetic environment. If you match that with some controllers that can, track the position of your hands, and the headset tracks the position of your head and your body in 3D space, you can actually provide a very immersive experience, and that's virtual reality. But let's jump back into what is mixed reality. So for me, mixed reality is a combination of both augmented and virtual reality. It starts, though, as a virtual reality device. So I'm completely occluding the eyes and presenting a synthetic digital environment, but cameras on the front of the device allow me to pass through elements of reality. And we've seen a number of devices come to market where this is used in things like simulation. So you may want to pass through maybe the cockpit of a real jet aircraft, but the virtual reality is overlaying a virtual combat or flight experience outside of the cockpit. And those are the kind of use cases that we're seeing, but we just wanted to level set on the technologies there. And this isn't really, many of you have seen technologies for gaming, but really XR is a game changer for a number of different scenarios within the enterprise. So frontline workers, for example, virtual reality is being used to train frontline workers in complex, critical business critical, mission critical, health critical tasks. For example, using virtual reality to train surgeons on complex surgical procedures, being able to train manufacturing, engineering, assembly, complex assembly things. So virtual reality gives us the ability to put someone in a scenario, train them up on virtual objects, virtual things. No damage is done, no risk to the participant, but really they learn through doing. And that is something that virtual reality is really proving out. I think there's been a great study by Johnson & Johnson that proved that virtual reality is 83% more effective than traditional training methods. So really powerful use case there. For augmented reality, it's really about augmented workflows. And here you see someone constructing a complex component there. And what we're doing is using the augmented reality device to overlay those instructions. And some studies done by Boeing and Airbus illustrate that this actually reduces human error in these complex tasks by 90% and reduces the time it takes for these complex tasks by 30%. So some huge kind of business gains there for these particular use cases. And it doesn't just stop at frontline workers. For the remote workforce, XR is really enabling design and collaboration type use cases. So the big one for VR here is design visualization. And so, VR is allowing designers to jump in to a multi-user collaborative digital environment and in real time design products, design cars, to change the configuration of cars, to change the design in real time and get a full high fidelity experience. And so that's really the power of virtual reality, being able to connect global talent in very immersive product design and visualization scenarios. So for product design, but maybe even architecture, engineering, and construction. On the right, we see virtual reality being used in media production. I'm sure you're probably familiar with the fantastic Disney production, The Mandalorian. And for The Mandalorian, they use virtual reality to do what they call pre-visualization of an episode. So they block out an entire episode in virtual reality. They can work out the shots they want, the props, the live action, the actors, the location. They can do all this in virtual reality. It saves a huge amount of time and cost with regards to the actual production of the show. So some massively impactful use cases and uses of virtual and augmented reality enterprise. And of course, it doesn't stop there. There are many examples of how XR is changing things in the enterprise. And we have an increasing number of ISVs and software providers in each of these different sectors, from interactive and training to Minidesk and manufacturing, of course, also Autodesk and automotive, and many, many more ISVs producing some incredible software running on these devices for these particular verticals and use cases. And so just to give you an understanding of the market, is this real? What's happening in the market? You might have heard of VR being around since kind of 2013, 2014 with the Oculus Kickstarter. You might have seen, Google Cardboard and some of those phone-based VR things. But VR and AR has come a long way since 2016, since even 2018. We've really seen an acceleration in the technologies. These technologies are leveraging mobile chipsets and mobile displays. Really, that allows us to kind of experiment and quickly iterate on new products. And so the last few years, we've seen some really great, some incredible kind of advances in the technology, from the lenses to the displays to the tracking. And so we've also seen a large number of pieces of hardware, excuse me, being released into the market. Everything from PC VR headsets like the HTC Vive and Vive Pro, the Oculus Rift, the Oculus Rift S, and also a number of standalone devices from Pico, Oculus, and HTC. And we'll talk about those a little bit later. But what you're seeing here is an uptick in the number of headsets and extended reality devices that are shipping worldwide. Millions are being shipped worldwide, both in consumer and in enterprise. And we also see this huge growth of ISVs in the enterprise space, which you'll see on the right-hand side there. And just in October this month, we've had a number of incredible product announcements, from a new Magic Leap device to a new Oculus device, or devices to new Pimax devices, to availability of business devices from a number of different vendors. So, some really great traction on the market. But early days, we saw enterprises deploying PC VR. And in that regard, what happens is that our customers are deploying physical graphical workstations, tethering a PC VR device to that headset, and experiencing VR that way. But this actually has a number of challenges when it comes to scaling this out and making it available to many more of their employees, or making it available internationally. It's very, very difficult. It's not practical, feasible, or cost effective to give everyone a graphics workstation that can drive a high fidelity VR experience. So what we've actually seen is a growth in the all-in-one devices. As I mentioned, Pico have released the Pico Neo 3 recently on the left-hand side. HTC have brought the Vive Focus 3 to market, and Oculus by Facebook have brought out the Oculus Quest 2 for business device, as well as, of course, a number of mobile devices that can increasingly provide a very impressive augmented reality experience. But we've really seen a huge growth in all-in-one devices. These are standalone Android devices in the enterprise. This allows our customers to quickly give, these are low-cost devices, so they can hand out these devices to employees and give them a virtual reality or augmented reality experience. And so what I want to do now is just give you a flavor of what we're doing at VMware.
At VMware, we're turning science fiction into enterprise reality. We're helping our customers adopt emerging technologies such as spatial computing. Augmented reality and virtual reality are already being used by our customers today across a variety of industries to dramatically increase productivity and the overall employee and customer experience. And VMware Workspace ONE is making it happen, taking real-world solutions from proof of concept to production. With scalable enterprise management for smart glasses and now augmented and virtual reality devices, Workspace ONE provides streamlined onboarding and configuration and simplified app deployment across any spatial computing device. We're building a future that enables secure access to spatial applications running on any device across any cloud, a platform that can lower the cost and improve the effectiveness of training through virtual reality. A platform that will accelerate workforce productivity through augmented workflows and remote assistance. Join with VMware as we build the future digital workspace now.
Great, so hopefully that gave you a flavor of what we're doing at VMware. And there's two kind of key components that you saw during that video. The first one is device management. VMware ships Workspace ONE, our digital workspace offering. And specifically, we have a product called Workspace ONE UEM, standing for Unified Endpoint Manager. And Workspace ONE UEM is really the platform that our customers use to manage all of the devices in the enterprise, from their, from their Apple Mac devices to their phones, to their Android tablets and devices, to their Windows PCs. So all of the devices, rugged devices, IoT devices, and now XR devices. So Workspace ONE UEM, we've had a number of improvements in the last year. Working closely with the hardware manufacturers of the XR devices, we're happy to say that Workspace ONE UEM supports the latest XR devices from a management perspective. So that enables our customers to have a streamlined onboarding experience, to be able to deploy applications and content to these devices, to be able to manage the devices from a security perspective, to enroll the devices, to check them out to users, to push down Wi-Fi profiles and certificates, and also to provide remote worker support. So being able to have an admin use a web browser to connect to a device and see what the user sees and provide support that way. So we're really proud of the advancements that we've made in the last year or so, and happy to support all of the XR devices in the enterprise around Workspace ONE UEM. And you see some of the vendors that we're working with down the bottom there. This is something that we're really focused on and supporting our customers with. And what this allows us, our customers to do, is really scale out their deployments, to be able to remotely manage these devices, to secure these devices, and really make it a practical reality to deploy these devices in the enterprise. But one of the key things that we introduced a few weeks ago at VMworld is Workspace ONE XR Hub. Workspace ONE XR Hub is the kind of second half of that video that you saw there. So it's fine to manage the device, but also what we actually need is to provide an enterprise user experience on the device itself. So Workspace ONE XR Hub is specifically designed to streamline the use of these devices in an enterprise setting. An XR Hub allows us to essentially provide a customized enterprise experience with security controls to that experience. And we're going to show a demo a little bit later and talk about some of the concepts behind this. So as I mentioned, on the left, we have Workspace ONE UEM. It allows you to enroll and stage XR headsets, to manage those headsets along with other mobile and laptop deployments, to deploy and manage XR and non-XR apps to these devices, and as I said, remotely support the apps. On the right-hand side, we have Workspace ONE XR Hub. This is an application that you push down to the XR device. You can push it down as a kiosk mode application, so it can act as a secure launcher. It locks the device down into a unified app catalog experience. So when the user turns on the device, they're asked to authenticate using their corporate credentials in whatever authentication flow that you want to support. We support multi-factor authentication, single sign-on, conditional access. And then from there, once they've authenticated, they then have access to the applications that you've provisioned to them using Workspace ONE to the device. And when we say applications, we mean any app. So this could be native applications running on the device. It could be SaaS web-based applications on the device, or it could be streaming XR apps from a virtual machine to that device. And as I said, completely customizable experience. And we'll see a demo later on. But what I want to do now is allow Greg to talk through some of the concepts around NVIDIA CloudXR and why CloudXR came about. Greg, over to you.
Thanks, Matt. And I think it's really important to think of the ease of the user now with this system that Matt has described. You know, I just put my headset on, all my content is right there in my window. And as a user, I put the headset on, I click on my content, and I'm off and running. So that content, when it's on device, is great. The local GPU in these three headsets, for instance, in the Pico, the Vive, and the Oculus are all using the Qualcomm XR2. So that chipset is great for local content. That chipset at the same time is battery powered. So that means there's some limitations, right? So relative to a full workstation GPU, you can think of the workstation GPU having a power envelope of 300 watts, which is certainly hard to battery power. So what that 300 watt power envelope means is you've got a larger RAM, basically. So your onboard memory for a full-size GPU is quite a bit bigger. And you also have more graphics processing power. So developers over the last year or two have really done a nice job at building apps that run on these all-in-ones and really containing the apps. In some cases, especially enterprise, we're going to have apps that require larger memory footprints and heavier GPUs to process. So that's the good and the bad of these devices: ease of use, a lot of content available, but sometimes you're going to have to kick out and get to a larger GPU. And for us, and Matt, you can go to the next slide, for us, we think of that as a streaming architecture. And so the streaming architecture is where you can have a remote NVIDIA GPU, and that remote, I'll talk about where remote can be, but you put your XR content on that remote server, stream over a network, and that network can be 5G, it can be Wi-Fi, it can even be Ethernet, to a lighter weight device. So you're essentially creating frames in that data center or in that remote computer and getting those frames in the on the constraints of a VR experience. You're getting those frames or an XR experience to the mobile device. Go ahead with the next slide, please. When we think about the graphics difference, this is some graphics that we picked from all-in-ones or handsets to give you an idea of the new flexibility you have by streaming from a larger GPU. So that left-hand side is, you know, where graphics fidelity really comes into demand. You know, when you're reading text in a training application or something, that higher resolution capability is really important. Over on the right-hand side, this is the ICIDO software from ESI Group, and they're able to collaborate over a 70 million polygon model. So that 70 million polygons is going to be a bit large for the onboard mobile GPU, and that's really where a collaborative environment needs to be powered from a data center GPU or a workstation GPU. If you'll give me a click, I'll zoom in on that middle panel. And what you see is when we think of AR on a handheld device, we often think of Pokemon Go and applications like that. You can see the graphics are relatively fundamental for Pikachu, right? We've got his shadow, but that's about it. If we look over at the right-hand panel, this is a Rimac, one of the new EVs coming out of Europe. This car is, you know, tens of millions of polygons. It's being rendered in a application that runs on workstation or large GPUs. That's Autodesk VRED. And so this is an image of that car in the NVIDIA headquarters lobby. That car's obviously not there. It's an AR projection on an iPhone. And you can see the fidelity of the lighting, the model, and the photorealism that we're really thinking about when we think about streaming XR. Next slide, please. So not only do you get the large data set size, which means you get a fidelity in your data, and you get the photorealism. When we start streaming these experiences, we're really moving away from this kind of barrier area where to have a full fidelity, high res VR experience, you needed to go to the VR machine, right? Each of these workstations on the left-hand panel are powering a tracking system. They're powering a headset with a large graphics card. And those machines don't go anywhere but this room. And when those machines aren't in use for VR, they're not in use at all. So for the enterprise, it's a pretty expensive, non-scalable system that even with that expense, realize users have a hard time getting to. And as soon as we start thinking about XR streaming, so I do the play on RTX on and off, CloudXR off, non-scalable, CloudXR on, now you have 3 users in a virtual environment. All they had to do was put their headset on, get through the Workspace Hub XR and put their headset on, and now they're in a VR environment that can be as rich as any VR environment you can have on a tethered system. Next slide, please. And that scalability is really critical. So the configurations of streaming are really varied. Over on the left-hand side, I'm showing cloud, data center, workstation, and even mobile workstation if you have a VR-ready mobile workstation. And the array of devices you can stream to between headsets and handhelds and laptops tethered to a VR system that are a little lightweight for doing VR, but can now use the streaming protocols. There's just a variety of configurations. I'll jump through a couple of them. Next slide, please. This first thing is an interesting, it's certainly possible. A lot of people use this. I use this here at my home. I have a workstation. I stream over my local network, and I can use my Oculus Quest 2 and I tell the story that I oftentimes in the summer, I go out in the front yard and I do a VR experience, whether that's looking at an automotive example or playing Half-Life Alyx, right? So that streaming works over those local networks. The really big deal, and I'll go to the next slide for this, especially for enterprise, is looking at when you start moving to cloud and data center. So now I can go into a virtualized environment. I can distribute and reuse these nodes. If someone's running VR on a workstation node in the data center, that's great. If they shut that down, this isn't the old style where that machine just waits for another VR user. Somebody can pull that GPU and they can run multiple desktops, multiple CAD packages, what have you. So we're now in the reusable, driving down the total cost of ownership of those GPUs. And if you have collaborators out at the edge, I can actually send a headset, for instance, to an architecture client, and they can get on a web instance and experience VR, and I can walk them through their design. And all it cost me was a headset. I don't have to actually get them a full computer and such. Next slide, please. So we're really talking about the distribution. We're changing the paradigm of XR with these tools. And the often used term is the democratization of VR. And it really is what we're talking about. So now my VR user, my VR customer, especially for ISVs, is no longer every customer that has a workstation that can run VR. It's literally everybody who can afford to buy a headset. So my workspace that's available VR work team is significantly bigger than it used to be when I had to have a dedicated workstation for each VR worker or XR worker. Now it's whatever my data center can deliver, and I can distribute it throughout my corporate network. And with the cloud services provider, next slide, please, Matt, I can think about really distributing worldwide, right? So I've got instances all over the world that I can now get to and distribute XR to my entire workforce. And my investment is rent the GPU from a cloud service provider and buy the user a headset. So if they use VR twice a month, it doesn't cost me any more than if they don't use it almost, right? So I don't have to buy a workstation for literally every employee around the world to use VR. And next slide, please. I wanted to close out my section just to give a quick demo. This is what we're talking about when we talk about streaming XR, and you can start the movie. This was done at Mobile World Congress back in 2019. And this is a McLaren Senna being visualized on a Samsung 5G phone. This data set's 30 million polygons. It's being actually rendered in a downtown Los Angeles data center, a Verizon data center, and then streamed over their public 5G network to that Samsung phone on the floor of the LA Convention Center. And you can see as we zoom into the steering wheel, this is the entire model. We haven't had to deprecate the model to get it on a mobile headset or a mobile phone. And certainly the lighting effects aren't something you can do on a phone in rendering. So that's the style of rendering when we talk about streaming XR. That's what we're really addressing. And Matthew, with that, I'll hand it back over to you.
Great, thanks, Greg. Just a great explanation of CloudXR and what it can be used for and the power of it. And so I want to jump back into VMware's Workspace ONE solution now and show you how CloudXR fits into what we're doing. So as we mentioned, Workspace ONE is the kind of core piece that brings all this together. It's the platform that allows us to manage these devices, these all-in-one devices. So we're going to be sending out thousands of devices possibly to our employees, or customer employees, thousands of devices out there. We want to make sure that they're secure, they're managed, and that they have their content and access, appropriately managed on there. So that's where VMware Workspace ONE comes in. We talked about Workspace ONE XR Hub, so we push that down to the devices, and this is going to act as our kind of enterprise client. So it will provide that secure experience. They'll put the headset on, they'll log in, and they'll see the content that's available to them. On the bottom right there, though, this is where we talk about VMware's product portfolio when it comes to streaming. So VMware for a very long time has had a product called VMware Horizon. This is our virtual desktop infrastructure product. We have millions of virtual desktops under management, and we can deploy this either on premises or in the cloud. And so VMware Horizon really sits on our VMware vSphere product, our kind of world-leading, market-leading data center virtualization products. And so we're using VMware Horizon to scale out a number of Windows 10 virtual machines. So VMware Horizon handles the provisioning of those virtual machines and the access to those virtual machines for employees. So through Horizon, we can spin up maybe 10 virtual machines. We can spin up 60,000 virtual machines. And each of those virtual machines has a Windows 10 operating system. We configure it with SteamVR and the NVIDIA CloudXR plugin for SteamVR. And of course, we make sure that our VR applications, PC VR applications, are installed on those VMs. And what we do is then we publish those applications using Horizon. We publish those applications to our Workspace ONE. And then what happens is Workspace ONE XR Hub picks up those user entitlements to those desktops and applications and presents them in the headset. So simply when a user clicks on an application they want to access, XR Hub then talks to Horizon. It provisions the virtual machine as it powers it on. It automatically logs the user in. It launches their application and then connects the user using CloudXR to that desktop. So now what we're doing is we're streaming the virtual reality application, the PCVR app, to the standalone headset using NVIDIA CloudXR. Of course, one of the things we point out here is we can also just stream the desktop if we wanted to in a 2D mode. And some of our customers are using that to provide an experience to people that want to watch along, maybe as an instructor walks through a VR experience. Other people can see what's happening on that desktop, on the application, and just see the 2D stream. So we have the ability to kind of stream using Horizon, the 2D desktop view, and also through CloudXR, actually stream the VR app to a standalone headset. So really the user wouldn't know whether the VR application and experience is running locally or remotely. They really don't know. It's just in the headset and accessible to them. But I do have a few people that question, can virtual machines really run VR? And this video is a great demonstration of that in action. So we actually have a rocket engine model with 27 million polygons. Because of the occlusion culling that's happening in the scene, it's probably about 12 million polygons. On the left, we're trying to render that model natively on an Oculus Quest device. And on the right, we're actually rendering on the server and streaming the pixels to the headset. As you can see on the right-hand side, it loads a lot faster, the application. It's very smooth. It's meeting the maximum frame rate on the headset, which at the time was 72 frames per second. And you see it's a very smooth experience. There's a little bit of popping because of the occlusion culling that we messed up on in the demo, but this is kind of rendering 12 million polygons on the right. On the left, we've loaded a lot more slowly, and the application is actually struggling to keep up. It's in the low digit, 7 to 10 frames per second, which actually is enough to make someone feel motion sick and dizzy. And so on the left-hand side, the experience is just not acceptable, and so they've had to remove the headset. And on the right, you can see that the virtual machine that is backed by an NVIDIA GPU with a virtual GPU connected to it really can deliver on rendering the scene and streaming it to the headset and providing a nice, smooth experience. So there's proof there that we can run VR on a virtual machine. And so I just want to come back into, delivering this at scale. So, we want to use VMware Horizon to manage that scale, to be able to automatically provision and manage those desktops at scale. And then what we're doing is on the standalone device, we deploy the NVIDIA CloudXR client, and we deploy Workspace ONE XR Hub. And so Workspace ONE XR Hub, when you authenticate, you can see your CloudXR-based applications that are published through Horizon. Click on the link, and then we connect the NVIDIA CloudXR client to that desktop so you can access that experience. So you can obviously access virtual reality on the headset, but it also might be a mobile phone use case where you can access an augmented reality model on your phone streamed again by CloudXR. So what I want to do is kind of wrap with a demo of Workspace ONE XR Hub and show you this in action. So this is a customized lobby that you can completely customize, customizable tutorial video. You've got the authentication flow. This 3D environment is one that VMware's created, but you'll be able to import all your own models. You can customize the art, you can customize the logo, or completely customize the environment and background. A user will log in, and we support, as I said, multi-factor authentication here. We're using RSA Secure ID to log the user in. And then we're going to check out on the first login. We're actually going to check the device out. So we're going to ask them to verify who they are, set a device PIN, and from then on, we have single sign-on into the headset as long as they know the PIN. The remote XR, Cloud XR applications are published using XR Hub, and I simply click on the link, and I'm now using NVIDIA CloudXR. It immediately launches the client, connects to the virtual desktop, and I'm in this high-fidelity VR experience where we're inside the human bloodstream, and the GPU is individually, simulating the blood cells there. And this is something that just would not be able to run on a standalone headset. You need a powerful graphics workstation. So we're getting the benefit of the powerful graphics workstation, but with the mobility of the standalone headset. And so this particular application teaches students about the human blood system, right? It simulates blood cells as they travel through the body. So a lot of computation going on here, a lot of graphics rendering going on. But for the user, it's streamed from the virtual machine in the data center to the headset. And of course, this is streamed over, could be streamed over a private 5G network or a Wi-Fi 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi connection or Wi-Fi 6. We actually deployed something very similar at Coventry University where they're doing this. And as I mentioned, students can access this application using a low-cost VR device, or the instructor can stream what's happening on a virtual desktop to a Zoom or Teams session, and people can follow along on a tablet or a phone and see what's happening in virtual reality. So a really great example and use case there of how we're using NVIDIA CloudXR to deliver high fidelity educational content to standalone headsets, on campus there for an education standpoint. So I do encourage everyone to sign up to the Workspace ONE XR beta. You can Google that, Google the Workspace ONE XR Hub online, and you should find the link to our beta site. In fact, it's included here on the slide, very helpful here. So if you go to beta-ea.vmware.com, you can actually sign up there for access to the Workspace ONE XR Hub beta. So with that, I just want to kind of wrap with some prerequisites for Workspace ONE XR Hub and talk about the high-level steps to get all this kind of set up. So from a VMware standpoint, XR Hub requires Workspace ONE access. If you are using Workspace ONE UEM or Horizon today, you will have access built in. So Workspace ONE access we use for authentication, so that is absolutely required. We recommend, you don't need, but we recommend VMware Horizon for a scalable Windows 10 virtual desktop deployment, and obviously Workspace ONE XR Hub to enable access to the applications and content running on those virtual machines. From an NVIDIA standpoint, you need an NVIDIA certified VMware vSphere server. And I can't emphasize this more. Really do check the specification of your hardware, make sure that it supports NVIDIA GPUs, that it supports VMware vSphere, and it supports NVIDIA vGPU or the RTX virtual workstation. That's a licensed product that you'll need in order to spin up a virtual workstation, a GPU for the virtual machine. You'll need the CloudXR SDK. Now, within the CloudXR SDK that you can download from NVIDIA's website, it includes a Windows Server executable that you install on the virtual machine. This is the CloudXR plugin for SteamVR. And they also have available a number of sample Android VR clients that you'll be using to put on the headset so you can use CloudXR to connect to the virtual desktop. On the right-hand side, some high-level steps. So, of course, get hold of your prereqs. We simply then just download the XR Hub and CloudXR documentation. Please read that. Install SteamVR and NVIDIA CloudXR on your Windows 10 virtual desktop. You also need to make sure that VMware Horizon is connected to Workspace ONE Access. So this is a very simple configuration in the two consoles, but you'll need to do that so that when you publish the Horizon desktops that have the CloudXR applications on, it appears in the XR Hub. You then need to set up XR Hub with Workspace ONE Access. Again, a very short configuration process. And then you want to deploy XR Hub and CloudXR to your XR devices. And then simply, what you then want to do is once you've synced Workspace ONE Access with Horizon, your CloudXR application should appear in Workspace ONE Access and should be visible from XR Hub, as long as you've entitled it to those users. And simply power on your headset, log into XR Hub, and access your CloudXR applications from there. It's really as simple as that. We're looking forward for you to try it out, to access the beta, and provide us feedback through that mechanism. And that is really how you deploy CloudXR on Workspace ONE XR Hub. Thanks for attending today, Greg. Any final thoughts from you?
No, it's an exciting product, an exciting time in XR. We think these all-in-one headsets plus software systems like VMware are going to really high octane the VR XR ecosystem. So we're looking forward to everybody getting on beta here and growing with us in this new journey in XR. And Matt, just great work by you and the VMware team.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. We're excited about this. We think that with Workspace ONE UEM and Workspace ONE XR Hub, we're really unlocking certainly the standalone VR headsets in the enterprise. We've had many new headsets ship in the last 12 months. And so with this, with these announcements we've made recently, we're really confident that we're unlocking enterprises' ability to deploy these things, to manage these things, and to provide an enterprise experience on these devices. So, we're really confident that XR Hub and Workspace ONE satisfies the needs of our customers. So if you are doing any kind of VR deployment today, standalone VR deployment, please check out Workspace ONE and XR Hub, and we'd be happy to help you get all that set up. And of course, the great thing about XR Hub is it provides secure access to your applications running on virtual machines using CloudXR. So really excited to get all that going. And once again, thank you for attending today. Have a great NVIDIA GTC and look forward to seeing you next time.